Educational Communications and this station present Environmental Directions with Nancy Pearlman. On this series, we explore the effects of human influence on the Earth's ecosystems and discuss solutions to environmental problems which affect the quality of life on this planet. Environmental Directions gives you the kind of information you need to help you participate in decisions impacting your community, the nation, and the world. Now, here's your host, Nancy Pearlman.
Hello. For the next half hour, we are going to be talking about climate anxiety and community regeneration projects with my guest, Lynne Sedgmore. She is chair of the Glastonbury Town Deal in the United Kingdom and has been involved with over 11 grassroots projects for community and skills regeneration in partnership with Strode College and the Open University. She is an activist, leadership developer, author, and poet, and has published 2 books, Goddess Luminary, Leadership Wheel, and Presence Activism, a profound antidote to climate anxiety. Her awards includes being given by the Queen of England, the Commander of the British Empire in 2004, for services to further education, and she was named by DBRIT, a non-governmental nonprofit organization in the United Kingdom, as one of the 500 most influential people in the UK. And she has also been named one of the UK's 100 Women of Spirit in the Spirit in Work Award. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much, Nancy. It's really great to be here.
You are speaking to me from a small town, a large town in England. Tell us about what Glastonbury is doing to be more environmental and ecological.
Glastonbury in England, it's a small market town of 9,000 people, so it's a small English market town, but it's also a spiritual vortex in the UK, particularly for indigenous spirituality, particularly pagan and other spirituality. It's also the massive Glastonbury Festival that has 220,000 people come here when it's on in June. So we're known for Glastonbury Festival, and we're known also as a market town, lots of history, as well as being a spiritual vortex. And pilgrims come here from all over the world.
When you're such a small town and you have so many visitors come, how can you have such a festival and be sure that it doesn't destroy the environment, that the pollution and the waste is not a problem?
I'm not involved in the festival, but Sir Michael Eavis set it up, and it's been going for over 20 years now. It's 11 miles out of the town, and it's in his Worthy farm, and they give millions of pounds to charity, and they make sure it's as environmentally friendly and sustainable as they can. So they work really, really hard not to damage the environment and to make sure it's all cleaned up. It's the most incredible operation you've ever seen, to have 220,000 people arrive for a week in fields and then go away again. But they make it all sustainable in all kinds of ways.
Throughout the year, your village or town can easily adopt sustainable practices, much easier than a place where I live, Los Angeles, which has millions of people and is so spread out. What kinds of programs have you adopted?
The Glastonbury Town Deal, 2 years ago, we were awarded £24.6 million from the government. So what we're doing is we're regenerating buildings to turn them from derelict buildings into business premises, into educational premises, into well-being centres. We bought 20 acres and are setting up a regenerative farm that's all about educating and around food security and rewilding. We are supporting some very well-known spiritual sites, the Glastonbury Abbey and Bridget's Mound, to rewild the Bridget's Mound and to have that with a roundhouse and a beautiful centre. We're funding a green energy project as well through solar panels and earth-based energy sourcing. We'll be able to provide more and more green energy in the town. So there's a whole range of projects that are in place from the 24.6 million, which is a lot of money for a town of 9,000 people.
Americans are not too familiar with all the small colleges and universities elsewhere. Tell us how you're involved with the students and the faculty at places like Strode College and Open University, and what is going on with them.
Strode College, in America, you would call it a community college. I've come over to America about 15 times to work with American community colleges all over different parts of America. So I've always been in colleges that are part of the vocational and skills sector. So we're training mechanics and hairdressers and business people as well as young people. What we're finding in our colleges today, that there is so many young people who want to make a contribution into the world, particularly around climate change, and they are anxious. There is such a level of anxiety. I've got 2 grandchildren, one's 18, the other 21, and both girls. They are really anxious. So the reason I've written this book is I want to reach out to students, to young people, to help them with how they cope with their anxiety in the face of such complexity and difficulty in the world. Also adults, but mostly I'm 70 next year, so I'm an old lady really, a crone. So it's wanting to help the younger generation, Gen Z and others. So how do they manage, how do they cope, what do they do with their hope? And to legitimize climate anxiety, because it's quite a sane, rational thing to feel anxious in the world at the moment. Not so much to pathologize it, but to help people to work through it.
Indeed, we are all very concerned about the climate change and the problems that we have caused on the planet, not just in terms of temperature and what it is causing in terms of natural disasters, but also in terms of species extinction. And it's important in community colleges, universities, that students are being educated. Are institutions in your area training people in solar panel installation? Are they training people in maintaining electric cars? Are they training people to be able to create more recycling opportunities? What kinds of educational programs are being provided?
There are specifically programs in universities and in colleges and in schools where you can go and learn about environmental. You can find out how to do more recycling. You can find out what kind of contribution you can make as a climate activist or just as an individual. And we're also trying to build it into the curriculum for the whole issue of sustainability, what kind of actions you can take as an individual, how you can get involved collectively in perhaps lobbying, protesting, as well as changing your lifestyle considerably. You know, everything from using eco products to flying less to having electric cars. And yes, the next stage in colleges will be how are we training mechanics who can service electric vehicles, and that will happen more and more, and using digital technology as well. So there's quite a revolution going on right across the country, as I'm sure there is in America. So how do we equip our young people to be aware and skilled in relation to making the world a better place and coping with the different effects of climate change? We've also got an initiative in Glastonbury that's for the community that's about adaptation, looking at the flood patterns that will happen here. How do we build food security, opening the regenerative farm so people are growing? There's lots and lots of areas around here. We're in a rural area, Plotgate and others, that are taking, say, 10 acres here, 20 acres there, and growing their own food and providing it. So we are very, very concerned around food security and flooding here.
The British Isles has been populated for centuries, and there's not a lot of wild area left. We established national parks here in the United States. We have wilderness, ecological preserves. You do have some endangered species. Are people in your community trying to set aside land for nature, for the plants and animals that need space without cars and houses and human beings?
Yes, we also live near some wetlands here. It's called the Somerset Levels. So there's lots of work going on to enhance and save some of the species here. The other things that are also happening is, as I've just said, people buying land to rewild it, individuals buying land, organisations buying land. In our St. Bridie's Mound, there's a very special butterfly. So we've rewilded all that area so this butterfly can really, really thrive. So in rural areas, what Stroud College has been doing is working with the London Community Kitchen. So we're bringing young people from London who, to be honest, think, they get their eggs from Tesco's or wherever, to actually bring them out into rural areas so they can understand how food is grown, how it comes about. They can have a respect for the land, a relationship with the land, and to take some of our young people into the urban areas to understand the differences. So that's something that I'm really, really keen on. We're going to bring another group from Stoke-on-Trent City. How do you bring urban children who may not have any kind of rural or sense of the land and bring them out into rural areas to fully understand the food relationship and to really think about how they can be more conscious about what they eat, how they eat it, and where it comes from.
That is so important because young people go to the store and they don't realize how those plants and animals got into the grocery store. They don't know what they look like in the wild. They can't recognize them, and I think it's very important that they understand where their food sources come from. You're in a small town that has tried to restore a wetlands. Where exactly are you on the island?
Where we are is what we would call the southwest. So we are an hour and a half by train from London coming south, and near our biggest city would be Bristol. So we're the southwest and we're near the coast. So we have lots of countryside, wetlands and the coast. So Weston-super-Mare would probably be our closest seaside place. The county is Somerset, and below that is Devon and Cornwall.
Talking about wild areas, one of the world's most famous conservationists is from the United Kingdom, David Attenborough. How does he influence people in your country versus what we hear from him in terms of his documentaries and his belief that we have to do more to protect our earth?
He's one of our heroes. He's what we would call a national treasure as a human being. I mean, the work that he does is extraordinary, and he's been doing it for many, many years. So he is one of our heroes. He's somebody who has devoted his life to illustrating and supporting and campaigning and informing. So yes, he's one of our national treasures. We all love him. Absolutely. He's a wise, wise man.
In your country, you have a monarchy, and Prince Philip was very active in conservation areas when he was alive. Can you tell us what kind of programs your government and your monarchy is doing to protect the earth?
Well, it's Prince Charles, who's now King Charles. He is the most active royal. He has been supporting initiatives and conservation initiatives for many, many years, and Prince William, now who will be the next king, they've set up an award where they give £1 million to half a dozen projects that can evidence that they're doing something unique and different in terms of conserving around the world. And these projects are not all in the UK, they're in different countries, and they're quite different types of things. As I've just saying about the Glastonbury Town deal, that's millions of pounds we've been given to do greening and to make things sustainable. And those kinds of projects are being funded by our government, of the previous one. We've just got a new government in. And that's been happening for many, many years now. Greening the area, looking at the economy, reducing fossil fuels, experimenting with different kinds of energies. I don't think it's going fast enough. I don't think it's taken seriously enough personally. but there are lots and lots of initiatives of mitigation and adaptation is being encouraged. Where the emphasis is going is encouraging more and more local initiatives. Yes, some national ones, and of course that you devolve the monies into local areas, into local cities and towns, so that they can do what they know needs to be done in their areas.
And we will talk more about all these initiatives and actions with my guest, Lynne Sedgmore, when we return in a moment.
Environmental Directions with Nancy Perlman continues with further discussion of the world's critical ecological issues. For more information, you may call 310-559-9160 or go to www.ecoprojects.org. Now, here's Nancy.
I'm speaking with Lynne Sedgmore. She is chair of the Glastonbury Town Deal. She's an activist, author, poet. We were talking about the monarchy. You were honored by Queen Elizabeth and awarded the CBE, which is Commander of the British Empire. Why were you acknowledged for your work?
I was acknowledged for the work that I'd done in further education, which is our equivalent of your community college. And it was because of turning a college round where the pass rates were only 48%, and within 4 years we got them to 86% with 88% retention, and also contributing on the national scene to how you can enable student success to be better and better, and to bring a college into, if you like, firing on all cylinders and ensuring that their student success is really strong and really high, as well as the student experience being really, really good. I've also contributed strategically to skills policy on the national scene as well. So it was a huge privilege, and it's a we. An individual gets it, but I only accepted it on behalf of the whole college. We have 30,000 students and 1,000 staff, because it's always a team that does these things, never an individual. I just happened to be the principal at that time, so I was the chief exec of the organisation, but it was definitely, I took it on behalf of everybody in the college.
You are a true leader who acknowledges that you can't do it alone. You received the award, but so many people worked with you. You have a book called Goddess Luminary Leadership Wheel. What is that?
My main skill is as a leadership developer. I was the chief executive for 17 years, and one of my jobs was to lead a national leadership centre. What I like doing is pushing the boundaries of leadership through different lenses. So Goddess Luminary Leadership Wheel is looking at leadership through a goddess spirituality perspective. I've looked at soul of leadership. My doctorate is spirituality in the workplace and spiritual leadership.
You have written a book called Presence Activism, a profound antidote to climate anxiety. In your book, you have lots of practical suggestions. You want people to be activists. What should they be doing to, one, not be anxious about the horrible climate situation that we're in, and two, to do more to protect our Earth?
I love Joanna Macy, if you've heard of her work, and she talks about active hope, and she talks about hope being something that we do rather than we have, and I've always loved that, and I follow that through in my book. I'm more about realistic or pragmatist hope. So I have a whole chapter on right action, because the premise of my book is that if we learn how to be present, and I'm talking about that ability to be still and to really go deep and into the basic trust of the universe, that we will have more equanimity and our anxiety can ease and dissolve. And then that enables us to be activists who not only know how to do, but we also know how to be. And it's how we do things, and I'm using the Buddhist term right action. So I have a whole chapter, and I refer, because there are so many books and things that you can find on the web about actions that we can take, everything from reducing or stopping, ideally, all your flying, long-haul travel, through to the products you use in your home, through to rewilding your own garden, through planting trees, a whole range of different things. I'm also clear that collective action is important as well. The major large-scale local, national and international companies have to do far more, as do governments, but that you can do collective action, whether it's protesting. I'm an Extinction Rebellion rebel as well, and go on the protest to bring attention to it, but also doing things like we are in Glastonbury, having projects that you can improve, growing organic food, lowering the carbon footprint, restoring old buildings, expanding green energy, through to setting up a group where you talk about your anxiety, you talk about what you can do in the local community. One of the things that really matters in the UK at the moment is food security. We have a lot of poverty and a lot of people who can't afford to feed themselves. So community fridges, food banks, places where people can go to receive food and to learn how to cook are being really, really well received in our community at the moment. And then I think it's also about housing. We're trying to look at alternative, non-off-grid housing, alternative housing, that people can have areas of their house and what we call live, grow and work, so that we're looking at the possibility of space that you can live in a house that's not traditional bricks and mortar, can be unusual and very eco-based. You can have half an acre of land around you that you can grow your own food, and you can work from this space as well. We're calling them live, grow, work spaces. So we're experimenting with a whole load of different things, and I think it's find what you can do in your local community, however big or small it is. There are things that you can do.
Could you give us some more suggestions that are mentioned in your book about how to both solve our climate anxiety and how to try and make changes to reduce the destruction of our climate and our environment by human beings?
In terms of reducing anxiety, I think it's important that we understand how our nervous systems are constantly jangled by concern and worry. We're bombarded all day, everybody is. And some people suffer from general anxiety, but then you add on top of that anxiety about the climate, that really what people need to do is learn how to manage and calm their nervous system. The reason I'm saying presence is a profound antidote is I genuinely believe that if we learn to be present, it's the underpinning way in which we can gain equanimity, that actually we get basic trust in the universe, that even though terrible things are happening, that actually all is well and all will be well. Yeah, it takes it to a whole new level. So the suggestions that I have in the book is to follow my presence process, but also I say if you need therapy, particularly my granddaughter's cognitive behavioural therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy, finding a support group. It's also simple things like getting enough sleep, looking after yourself through exercise, deep breathing, massages if you can afford it, a healthy diet, journaling and spending time in nature for the individual. So it's finding your way of calming yours, and I've got an appendix on the nervous system, and understanding our trauma reactions as well. When I coach people, if I can get busy chief execs and busy people and activists just to spend 10 minutes twice a day presencing, it does change their lives. It really does. And then I think it's finding ways that we can support broader initiatives. As an individual, we may not be able to do those, but belong, go and work for an NGO, go and become an Extinction Rebellion is a big thing here for us. The protests and the reminding governments and oil companies and everybody else about what they need to do as well. And to be part of community initiatives. Look out where the BIDS monies are. Look at where you can find out to get resources and funding to do things that really make a difference in your own community. But ultimately, the big global corporations have to make big changes. Governments all over the world have to honour their promises, many of which are not happening at the moment.
You have also talked about processes that you describe as presence flower and an anxiety flower. Does designed to solve the anxiety issues that we face. Can you elaborate what those terms and processes are?
Yeah, I'm a model maker. I love creating models. So I've created 2 models that are in the book, illustrated in the book. One is the presence flower, and it's really a process that is about how do you, if you like, become more mindful through allowing, relaxing, opening, sensing, deepening, observing. It's practices. Some people call them spiritual practices. I actually think whether you've got a spiritual perspective or not, it doesn't matter, or a religious perspective, because these practices calm our nervous systems. So the whole idea is that we be present, we practice presence, and then we move through into the essences of flow, joy, peace, trust, strength, resilience, and love, instead of feeling stuckness, grief, tension, suspicion, defeat, overwhelm, and fear. I wrote the book because as an activist myself, I was a second-wave feminist from being 17, that there were times when I just had burnout, overdoing, not being peaceful and quiet enough, feeling frustrated. So the whole premise of the book is how do we have an activism that's seeped in presence that means we can keep going without the burnout, without feeling immobilized, because we're constantly being replenished.
I totally understand the problems of activist burnout because I've been working for decades on environmental causes, feminist causes, many other concerns to take care of the plants and animals and human beings on our planet, and we definitely have to restore our health to be able to restore the health of the environment. You have certainly deserved the many awards that you have received. You've written over 3 poetry anthologies. Are your poems related to the earth?
My poems are more related to spirituality and the spiritual side.
Do you think that the spiritual side is important to motivate people to do something to change our lifestyle and be more ecological?
I find that a really interesting question, Nancy, because while I was doing my research for the book, what I discovered was that many scientists who had moved towards understanding climate and the perils of facing us went on a journey where they ended up, Jem Bendell, the creator of deep adaptation, very much a scientist, had his 4 R's, and then he began to realize that he needed reverence. What these scientists turn to is much more finding meaning and purpose in the everyday. My opening quote in the book is, on the last day of the world, I would plant a tree. So what you find is, for me, spirituality has always been important, but one of the effects of COVID and climate change is people looking for meaning and purpose in new ways and finding that succor and support and calmness in nature. And actually, they may not call it spiritual, but they're finding ways of calming their nervous system through nature or through practices of presence. I deliberately use presence because it's an encompassing term. So I think that use the term spiritual, use the term meaning and purpose. What matters in life is becoming more and more important to people. And in this country, people are moving out of the cities. More people now are moving out of cities to rural areas than are moving into cities. I read an article on that the other day, which is quite interesting.
How do people get your books? How do people contact you for any assistance in their activism work?
My books are on Amazon and online in bookshops. Present Activism is available in America. It's in an ebook, paperback and ebook. So that's the primary way. It'll be in most bookshops as well, online and on the Ink Collective website. I do have my own website, which is lynnesedgmore.co.uk, Lynne, S for sugar, EDG, M for mother, ORE, lynnesedgmore.co.uk. But mostly it's online, or you can find out how to contact me through my website as well.
And your email?
It's lynn.sedgmore@gmail.com, and there's no E in the middle of Sedgmore, Sedgmore.
You certainly are doing great work, and I encourage everybody to take some of your advice, your suggestions, to be motivated by your work in their own community. Thank you so very much for your activism. Thank you very much for being my guest.
And Nancy, thank you so much for the work you've been doing for so many years. You're a pioneer in this area. It's brilliant what you've been doing, and it's an honor to be here as your guest. Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. I have been speaking with Lynne Sedgmore, who is chair of the Glastonbury Town Deal, an author, poet, and activist. I'm Nancy Perlman. Thank you very much for joining us, and do tune in again next week.
If you would like free information about these environmental issues, go to www.ecoprojects.org or call 310-559-9160. Environmental Directions with your host, Nancy Perlman, is a community affairs program of the nonprofit organization Educational Communications and this station.